Something we really do is obsess about the client as a whole, right? We don't have users, we don't have customers, we have clients. They're real people that have family, that have friends, that have real lives, and we're helping them build their Bitcoin wealth. It's not something we take lightly and that responsibility lightly. And I think hopefully that shows through proof of reserves, public financials, force field, as you mentioned Wyatt earlier, in terms of helping people protect their Bitcoin. So I guess long-winded way of saying focused on building the best Bitcoin and Bitcoin-only exchange in the world, and also being and building the most trusted financial institution in the world. I think that evolves in that sense.
Bitcoin is a currency on the internet. If you don't trust any other currency, this is where you go. It's going to outperform everything. Bitcoin could eventually be worthless.
Every day is a good day to buy Bitcoin.
Bitcoin reached its highest price to date.
Bitcoin hitting a new high. It really has reached escape velocity.
There is no second best.
Who cares about Bitcoin?
It's the only secure database that's ever been invented.
Anti-social.
Bitcoin is the real deal.
Stupid.
Everything is bullish for Bitcoin.
Immoral.
It's going up forevermore.
Fix the money, fix the world.
WhiteOak is a registered investment advisor, and the opinions expressed on the show are their own and do not reflect the opinions of the Silica LLC. Joining us as a CPA, and the opinions expressed on the show are their own and do not reflect the opinions of Trusted CPA or other affiliated firms. Information presented is for educational purposes only and does not intend to make an offer or solicitation for the sale or purchase of any specific securities, investments, or investment strategies. Investments involve risk and unless otherwise stated are not guaranteed. Information expressed does not take into account your specific situation or objectives and is not intended as a recommendation appropriate for any individual. Listeners are encouraged to seek advice from a qualified tax, legal, or investment advisor to determine whether any information presented may be suitable for their specific situation. Past performance is not indicative of future performance. Any statements or opinions are subject to change without notice.
Welcome to Bitcoin for Financial Services Media, the podcast where sound money meets professional services. We explore how to build Bitcoin financial services industry within the principles, values, and ethos of Bitcoin. Today we're joined by Ben Epling, Relationship Manager at River. You're not going to want to miss it.
Alrighty, guys. We are guys and gals. We are back with another episode of Bitcoin for Financial Services. So thanks for joining us again. We're quickly approaching episode 20. I think today is 17, 18, 19, somewhere in that range. So we're right there on the cusp of getting to the episodes that many podcasts die before ever getting to. So, and today we have the pleasure of welcoming Ben Epling from River, one of our favorite partners in the entire Bitcoin space. So, Ben, thanks so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be on.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we met at our summit in October last year. Is that right?
Yes, I believe that was the first time that we met in person. We probably had exchanged some emails at some point before, but yeah, I think that was the first face-to-face meeting.
Beautiful. Well, I'm sorry it took so long to get you on the podcast since it's, beginning of March here, but
hey,
better late than never, right?
I made it within the first 20, so that's a feat.
That's true. That's very true.
Was
very cool.
BFFS your favorite summit you went to in 2025?
It genuinely was. I'm not exaggerating.
Nice.
I'm not just blowing
Wow.
smoke. I swear. It was one of the definitely top. It was up there because the intimacy of it, the small crowd. I love that type of environment. The space is perfect, obviously, for that. So yeah, it was my first time at the space as well. So that was also part of the benefit, was seeing the space as a whole. But yeah, it was amazing overall. So props to you guys for putting that on.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming out.
Thank you.
And so last time I saw you in person was actually at Bitcoin Park. And so we've got to ask the question, are you, and you're local, I know, to you don't have to disclose which one if you don't want to, but to a Bitcoin Park hub. Do you have a strong opinion on the park versus space question? This is why I always wonder why it has to ask this question, because he has a very strong opinion. I'm non-biased about it, but I'm curious about your take.
I'm unbiased, and I'm not biased towards either. I will say, since I'm physically close to one of the parks, I think that somewhat has to sway me a little bit, just because it's harder to get to Denver. It includes an aircraft, whereas I can typically walk or take a car, to one of the Bitcoin parks. So, but yeah, no strong opinions there.
That's weak, Ben. I expect stronger takes out of you the rest of the episode.
I'm assuming you're biased towards the space, right? Is that what I'm hearing here?
Yeah, well, and it's just like I find that most people are after they've been to the space.
That's
I
fair.
haven't heard too many. Oh wow, Bitcoin Park's actually better, So I'm open to hearing that. It just hasn't happened.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm Switzerland. I'm unbiased.
I don't know, dude. I'm gonna take the strong side of. I mean, I go to the park much more than I go to the space, and half of the team works out. I don't know. I guess we have one guy who works out of the space, and then we have 3 people who work out of the park. So I don't know, Rod, if you're listening, man, I'm a park guy at heart, but I love the space too, obviously. So. All right, cool. Well, we've got a lot. Honestly, we've got a long list of things that I want to make sure we get to. So, Ben, tell us how you got into Bitcoin originally. I just checked your LinkedIn just to make sure you've been at River since, it seems like, I don't know if it's the exact beginning, but for a long time, since 2021 now. So just walk us through your Bitcoin journey, and then how did you get involved with Alex at River?
Yeah, for sure. Bitcoin journey, to start with that. It's actually pretty unconventional in the sense that one of my college professors, so I went to the Ohio State University. So I studied economics and finance. And one of my econ professors back in 2017, my macroeconomics professor, she actually was the one who orange pilled me. So it was pretty fascinating. In her public lectures, we're a big public university. Obviously, it's not somebody you would anticipate kind of orange pilling in her lectures, which she wouldn't. But if you went to her office hours, she was kind of like a speakeasy for Austrian economics. She wouldn't put that by any means again in the presentations, but if you would go speak to her one-on-one, she was very much so an Austrian economist. And I didn't know what that was at the time, but I obviously learned from her in that sense. And this was during the bull run of 2017. So she was mentioning Bitcoin. She was from abroad, so she actually had used Bitcoin to send send money to her family members who lived abroad as well. So that was one of the use cases she had. But yeah, that's how I initially kind of got down the rabbit hole. The first time she mentioned it in one of her office hours, I went back to my dorm at the time in Columbus, and something about it just kind of flipped the switch, and I just dove down the rabbit hole. And obviously I'm still in that rabbit hole ever since. So I'm a class of 2017er in that sense,
Wow.
thanks to my college professor, which funny enough, one of my colleagues at River, who's our director of finance, he actually, the same professor 2 years before that, was actually the one who orange pilled him as well. So come to find out, she's been orange pilling people for generations here, basically as classes come through her econ classes at Ohio State. So pretty interesting take there. And then, yeah, from River's perspective, I've been with the team for over 5 years now, approaching 5.5-ish years. So yeah, we didn't have a mobile app at the time or anything when I had joined. So I've been with the team for quite a while, variety of different roles. Right now I serve in a relationship management capacity. So I work a lot with our private clients, our business clients who are adopting Bitcoin on their treasury, work a lot with financial advisors, family offices, some of our partners as well. So pretty wide variety in that sense, but currently in that relationship management capacity.
I love it, man. That's a great story. So did you have any strong reaction, I guess, when 1 or 2 years ago, where the keynote at the Ohio State graduation got all the boos? Remember that?
Yes, I 100% did have some strong reactions to that because I was in Columbus at the time, actually. And yeah, it was pretty. It'll be a good clip to have here in about 5-10 years. So it's just more ammo in the tool belt. But yeah, it definitely was not a great look. Because yeah, hopefully we're seeing some more commencement speakers like that mention it. Hopefully the attitude increases over time.
That was funny. It's a real shame. I don't know who that guy was, but I thought he gave a good talk. And yeah, I'm not
Legend.
surprised the student body at the Ohio State would react in such a way. It's different.
Why?
kind
What do
of
you have
folk,
against
but
the Ohio State? Are you going to pick a fight about the Ohio State University?
Hey, I
Are you a
appreciate- I
Michigan
appreciate
guy or something?
Prefacing with the we trademarked the word, so you almost have to. You know what I mean?
Hey,
that's my problem, Jordan.
I just win friends. I win friends. That's what I do here, What does it cost me to say the Ohio State University, All right, Wyatt, are you a Michigan guy? I didn't know this.
No, I'm a Wisconsin guy, so Big Ten, a little contention there. Not quite in the same league right now as Ohio State, so I got to take my medicine there, but healthy rivalry.
Hey, as long as the Big Ten's winning,
cool.
we're happy.
True. Conference over everything.
I'm really excited to have you on because I think a lot of Bitcoiners, at least the ones we deal with in our firm, they just love River. There's obviously a lot of options out there. There's even a handful of Bitcoin only options at this point to acquire Bitcoin. And yeah, a lot of our customers prefer to use River. And we see we get the insight to kind of see their journey, especially as we're building out people's cost basis schedules and all that kind of stuff, and end up having to pull CSV files from all the sources, but ends up being a lot of them that they're currently living on your all's platform. So hats off to you. I know River is one of the most highly respected just companies in all of the Bitcoin space. So seriously, you guys have built a really amazing product, and you offer a great service to your customers as well. So not a
Yeah,
question there, just a hats
yeah.
off. So
No, we appreciate that, and hopefully, when they're pulling the CSV files, hopefully there's some good data for you to input there. So if there's any feedback
Absolutely.
on that, make it easier for you. Let us know.
Well,
Absolutely.
I'll reiterate that to you, Ben, just in case you're not tired of winning yet. But I always recommend River to all my clients. I use it personally. I think you guys have done like a phenomenal job just with like I would say maybe just like the core platform, Bitcoin only, proof of reserves. Those are things I always touch on. But then just even new features I've noticed since I've been a user. You'll have to remind me of like do you call it force field or vault or something?
Force field. Yep.
So just new features like that, try to help people, keep their Bitcoin safe. It really is awesome. And, always my first recommendation.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate that.
Very cool. Well, one of the other big pieces that you guys are working on is like the data. You're just pushing out, I feel like you're pushing out reports. Are you all like, is that, I guess, a big vertical for you all at this point is the research component?
Yeah, research is definitely huge, and that's a huge shout out to Sam Baker, who's our research analyst and pushes a lot of that data out there and does a lot of the data and research reports. But yeah, research is definitely something we're focused on, and I think at the core of that also is education. Right, there's a lot of education, and research is the core of that education. So definitely a priority of ours in terms of getting different research reports out, educating about Bitcoin adoption, what's driving it, and things of that nature. So definitely a focus of ours.
Your wealth deserves intention. Basilic Financial is a Bitcoin-focused wealth management firm built to help our clients find balance between money and meaning. We integrate sound money strategies across 4 distinct personalized services: financial planning, individual wealth management, retirement services for SMBs, and Bitcoin financial services. Your prosperity, your purpose, intentionally guided at Basilic Financial. Visit our website at basilic.io to schedule a free consultation. Well, and again, I want to thank you for those because I have continuously cited them in the work I've done. I know you guys just dropped your most recent report a week or two ago. What were some of your big takeaways from that?
Yeah, I think in terms of takeaways from that, it's interesting. Something I think a lot of people have seen and know, but the numbers behind it of kind of with this cycle, where has adoption gone? And obviously, it's skewed towards institutions. I don't think that's I don't think it's a big surprise to most people in that sense. But the actual data behind it of basically individuals being net sellers of Bitcoin and institutions being net buyers of Bitcoin over this last cycle is something it's overwhelmingly institutions, I guess, is kind of what was fascinating about that. Right. I think it's also interesting to see a lot of the banks now are getting involved, as we saw obviously news this week in that sense. But 60% of the top U.S. banks are building Bitcoin products. 52% of the top U.S. hedge funds have a Bitcoin allocation. Just some of these actual kind of granular stats on the adoption on the institutional side is very fascinating. Even though 52% of U.S. hedge funds have a Bitcoin allocation, 90% of the top 50 RAs have a Bitcoin allocation, only 0.006%, I believe, was the number of assets managed by those advisors are allocated to Bitcoin. So it's obviously a minuscule number. And also at the same time, too, getting it outside of kind of the Wall Street and more to the Main Street side of things, which is a lot of what we see and what we have kind of interesting, unique data on. Right, we more than doubled our business account last year in terms of business accounts and businesses that are buying Bitcoin on River. So it's a huge growth area for us. We're seeing huge adoption on the business side of things as a whole. Anything from a hot dog stand to a cleaning business, to churches, to nonprofits, to publicly traded companies and really everything in between. So it's not only kind of these large Wall Street institutions that everyone sees in the news, but it's also these everyday businesses that people use every day, services, products, these Main Street businesses that are adopting in mass and in numbers that you would never see in the public headlines because they're private businesses, but it is happening. And that snowball is only getting bigger and bigger, which is super bullish in my opinion and super fascinating as well.
Yeah, I guess because I'm looking at the report that you all put out released a graphic 2 weeks ago where it said the 2025 change in Bitcoin ownership. I guess tell us more about that story of the individuals. Do you think, because obviously like that's a drop, it's a pretty substantial drop,
Oh,
and then
yep,
governments are
yep.
up, funds, ETFs are up, businesses are up. Is that just, signs of the economy where people are having to exit positions to cover liabilities? Did people get out over their skis based off the research where they had to liquidate things because they didn't listen to Matt Odell and stay humble? I'm just curious what your all stance on, because a lot of Bitcoiners I think see that chart and they think through, what everyone like the hardcore Bitcoiners believe the use case of Bitcoin. And some people might see that as bearish just because individuals are exiting and institutions are coming in, even though it's kind of built for peer to peer. I'd just be curious, like how you all are kind of seeing that play out behind the scenes.
Yeah, yeah, that chart is pretty drastic, right? In terms of the drop of the amount of individuals that are holding Bitcoin, aka that were not sellers of Bitcoin. And I guess if you take the summation of 2024 and 2025 together in that chart, it's more than 1 million Bitcoin across individuals were sold, or effectively a net loss or net kind of drop of 1 million Bitcoin across individuals, and those 1 million went towards institutions. So no surprise there in that sense. From I guess why the individual selling across individuals to a certain extent. What kind of one theory is that a large portion of that million across the 2 years is individuals moving away from holding spot Bitcoin, from holding actual Bitcoin themselves, and either just liquidating early whales who take it profit sharing, who are buying businesses or whatever it may be with the funds that they or the profits that they have from those kind of early whale positions, but then also at the same time moving it towards ETFs and towards stocks. And I know that's obviously opposite of what we see a lot of times as Bitcoiners in the industry, but some of these early whales who shift from holding Bitcoin to now they hold ETFs, hold stocks. A lot of it has to do with tax considerations, security preferences, estate planning, inheritance planning, different positioning of their whole kind of entire portfolio. So both selling and kind of profit taking from early whales, and also different tax considerations, security preferences, things of that nature. From moving from actual Bitcoin, selling that, and then obviously holding ETFs or stocks or buying businesses or whatever other assets they may be buying. Now, to note, obviously, these institutions have been net buyers of Bitcoin over the last few years. Institutions at their core are still individuals, right? A lot of these funds and ETFs, they're buying because individuals are buying for their IRAs and things of that nature. So when you kind of break it down at a base level, there's obviously individuals that are driving the growth on the institutional adoption side. It's just shifting of how they are buying it. So pretty interesting kind of, I guess, dynamic there. But yeah, I think most individuals, the take is that most individuals have been selling either early whales or for different reasons, for taxes, businesses, different assets, things of that nature.
Yeah, it really is interesting. I think we have been kind of able to identify a lot of the individual sales are coming from whales. I think Galaxy, shoot, maybe it's 3 or 4 months ago now, they posted, I think it was like an absurd transaction. It was like 80,000 Bitcoin or something that they, help facilitate. And, part of me is kind of like, okay, man, like you've earned it, like go get that ranch in Montana, but then I think it's slightly concerning. So it's like, I don't know, concerning is probably too strong of a word, but if these whales and folks who had like the most conviction are exiting a position, I just think that's interesting. And I'm curious if you guys had looked at this because, I was looking at the report and I could be wrong, but older reports, like the estimate for lost coins was larger. And so are we seeing it's like, okay, older wallets where we had no activity, maybe had some activity, this cycle. And so just given, public blockchain, we're kind of constantly reassessing like what we know about it as things happen. Could you add like some color to that?
Yeah, in terms of the lost Bitcoin number, I mean, it's just remains the same in that sense, I guess, from our perspective. In that report, we also have a chart that kind of breaks down individual Bitcoin ownership and how that looks across lost coins, Satoshi, individuals, governments, all that good stuff. And I think a lot of from what we've seen, or what I've seen as well, the lost coin number hasn't really changed much. A lot of these early whales they may have had dormant wallets, but a lot of times that actually wasn't included in some of those larger lost coin projections. And if so, it wasn't it wasn't a large enough amount to really move that projection to a certain extent. So not too much of a material take on that. And if you were, I guess, to kind of zoom back a little bit too, from a projection standpoint, if we were to take that 2025 number, right, of individuals being net sellers, institutions being net buyers, if you were to extrapolate that out by 2036, I believe it is, institutions will actually be the majority holder of Bitcoin across the entire kind of asset class. So just interesting, again, that's very fixed, assuming 2025 continues exactly, and we extrapolate that out. Obviously, we know that's not the case, but just kind of a thought experiment there, that if it were to continue at its current pace, not slow down, not speed up, 2036, the majority of Bitcoin being held would actually be by businesses, governments, funds, ETFs, and things of that nature, which is pretty interesting to think about. And obviously what implications that may have, who knows, but just kind of an interesting timeline there in that sense.
Yeah. One question I have on the business versus individuals. I mean, I assume, and you tell me if this is the correct assumption, that a business owner coming to you all that says, "Hey, I want to open up a business River account," was previously just a River individual. Is that a good assumption or no?
So it's a fair assumption for a solid percent, but it's not the case all the time. Now, most of the time, the scenario here, right, is the business owner is a Bitcoiner, and now the business owner is basically wanting to buy Bitcoin on behalf of their business. So they are a personal Bitcoiner, they own Bitcoin for themselves, and they basically like, hey, I have this cash flowing business. Why don't I just buy Bitcoin and hold Bitcoin on my balance sheet of my business? And why am I just buying it personally? That's a very traditional scenario. So they both are a personal Bitcoiner and also are a now wanting to be a Bitcoiner on behalf of their business. And that's the really core common thread across business accounts that we onboard at River is 97% of businesses on River have concentrated ownership. And what does that exactly mean? It means basically the decisions can be made by 1 to 5 stakeholders. So approval is only needed from 1 to 5 stakeholders. They don't have to really incorporate a massive board or a kind of intricate stakeholder kind of pyramid to get approval to add Bitcoin to the balance sheet. It's typically businesses that are closely held that 1, 2, 3 people can make a kind of decision, come to the conclusion that they should buy Bitcoin on behalf of the business, and they go ahead and do so. But Jordan, you're exactly correct, where most of the time it is a personal Bitcoiner who owns a business, started a business, is operating a business, who now wants to add Bitcoin to that balance sheet of that business.
Okay. So I guess, are you all seeing, it sounds like there's a mix of partnerships in there, corporations, as well as just sole proprietorships, not for profits, right? It's a general mix. I'm just trying to, I guess, see, are you seeing it as flows are coming out of a River individual account and actually just making a transfer over into a newly created River business account? Is it something like that, or is it more
It's
maybe
typically
they're
in
coming from
addition
a different
to.
platform? In addition,
Yeah,
okay, cool.
typically in addition to. So typically the founder would still have obviously a personal position, but they would then start to add to a business one as well. So typically,
Gotcha.
it's not mutually exclusive in that sense. And then, yeah, they would buy for both. We would also, they definitely skew long term. We polled some of our clients and business clients, and 63% of businesses on River plan to hold their Bitcoin indefinitely. So it's a pretty high number. Obviously, the majority percent of businesses have no exit kind of in mind. They don't want to sell their Bitcoin. They just plan on buying and continuing to buy over the long run and don't plan to ever sell it. So 63% of them kind of had that indefinite timeline, kind of low time preference in that sense.
And on the report, I mean, I love the page on investment advisors. I think there's some interesting insights in there because, okay, 90% of top 50 IRAs have a Bitcoin allocation. Next page, you guys are kind of are displaying the proposed position sizing of said firms. Obviously, position sizing very intimate to like the individual and goals trying to achieve. But also on that page, have overall allocation or how advisors are putting together the portfolio and your Bitcoin's less than 1%. If we're pulling on that thread, do you think this is just kind of more of like a marketing play for these larger firms who is like, look, we recommend a Bitcoin allocation, like, let me take your business. And then in reality, they're kind of more dismissive of the asset class in general?
Yeah, I think to a certain extent it could be the case for some firms, but I think a lot of it is just demand driven, right? I think they're some of them are waking up to the fact that their clients have been pushing for them to allow them to buy Bitcoin, at least Bitcoin ETFs, through their platform for years, and they're finally waking up to the fact that okay, we have this demand from our client base. We see clients leaving these RIAs to go to others because they can't get access to Bitcoin or to Bitcoin ETFs. So I think that it's somewhat probably of their team trying to, yeah, as you mentioned, save face to a certain extent of signaling that they're open to the idea. Now, how much do they actually push that to their clients? I'm not sure because I've never actually obviously been inside the doors or seen how they do it. But I think to a certain extent it is, yeah, they're listening to the demand. They're somewhat they don't want to miss the sailing ship in that sense of the prior years where they haven't allowed it. They've obviously lost funds and assets under management because of that. So they want to signal that they're at least somewhat open-minded to allowing spot Bitcoin ETF access. And once kind of one of them does it, the kind of snowball continues to roll. So yeah, I think it's somewhat of a signal. Again, I think it's somewhat up to the specific advisors as well. I think the firms have kind of locked the specific individual advisors from obviously recommending Bitcoin ETFs previously. And I think some of the advisors have been pretty noisy internally to some of these firms, and even ones that I had talked to before too, of like, hey, like give me access basically to be able to at least give access to my clients for this. So I think it's a very advisor by advisor case basis as well. But yeah, it's pretty interesting to see the recommended portfolio allocation Bitcoin. Obviously, it's very small percentages across that entire graphic, by all means, with Fidelity being the highest, but it's still a pretty small percent across the entire kind of base.
And as you guys are obviously doing research on this, witnessing this trend in real time, have you guys had any thoughts or conversations internally about building tools to support these folks?
Yeah, in terms of internal tools, we don't have anything on the docket explicitly right now. In that sense, we support a lot of advisors and a lot of their clients in current form with buying Bitcoin. So we do support a ton family offices, RIAs, all that good stuff when it comes to assisting their clients with getting Bitcoin and making sure that the experience is as smooth as possible and actually owning that Bitcoin through River accounts. But we don't have any kind of API plugins, at least in the current form. Obviously, they could be coming soon. We don't have anything explicitly to launch here shortly, but there definitely is a case to be made in that sense to make it easier for advisors and other service providers to be able to have access to kind of different features that we could offer as well. But so nothing explicitly currently, but definitely wouldn't write it off for the future.
Ben, I think you promised Wyatt a huge announcement on the episode. I think that's what he's searching for is the big announcement that he can go all caps on back onto Twitter, and
I wish
we
I had
need the
that
all
in me.
caps announcements to pump the price. So
Pump the
I'm
price.
just kidding. I'm kidding. Okay, let's pivot over to why you all see business owners say, I love Bitcoin or I'm interested in Bitcoin, but it's a no for me on the business side for XYZ reason. Because I assume you get those conversations as well,
Yeah.
right?
Yes, we certainly do. And again, we also polled our clients on this, similar to the 63% about kind of holding perpetuity. We also polled on what kind of stops businesses from buying Bitcoin or onboarding to River. And by far, I think this is also no surprise. By far, it is the accounting implications, the CPA implications. It's basically the CFO, the bookkeeper, whoever the finance employee internally saying, hey, I think that this is going to make my life 5 times harder for basically no net benefit to the business. It's not part of our operations. It's not key to our business as a whole, but it's going to make my job so much worse. So it's typically the accountant or the CPA or whoever may be internally to the firm on the finance side of things that is typically the one pushing back against adopting Bitcoin because of that exact kind of notion where they think it's going to make their life harder. But again, it's not core to their business in their view. So they're pretty push back against that pretty hard, but it typically almost always comes down to the accounting, bookkeeping side of things.
Okay, interesting. If you're a financial professional working with Bitcoin, you know the pain of messy CSVs, broken cost basis, and accounting tools that were never built for this asset. Bitmint fixes that. Bitment is the Bitcoin native accounting platform built for CPAs, bookkeepers, advisors, miners, and serious Bitcoin investors. You get clean Bitcoin bank statements, reliable cost basis tracking, full reporting, and fiat integration through Plaid. No crypto talk, no workarounds, just proper accounting for the hardest money on earth. Create a free account or book a demo at bitment.co today.
Well, and if I could jump in here, Jordan, I would kind of like to maybe double click on why we think CPAs in the accounting industry are holding back Bitcoin adoption. Just kidding. I saw you over there salivating, and maybe we just throw the Bitment ad in like right here.
I mean, it's funny because it is a true thing. It's a problem that we've identified in the firm probably back in 2020. So it is it's still, I would say, at scale unsolved. I would be curious how you all normally try to counter that argument, or how do you generally try to work with, because it is really a difficult problem. Someone who, especially if they're bringing history with them, maybe they started on name whatever other exchange that you would like to, or they jumped to several different exchanges before landing on River as like their one that they're going to stick with for the long term. There's a whole history back there. There's all kinds of lots, and you all don't have any insight into that, I assume, unless the client gives it to you. And if you ask the client to give it to you, they're going to be like, I don't know how to configure that.
Yeah. So the counter to that, and honestly, one of my favorite parts of River actually is our performance reporting. So you mentioned earlier in the show, the CSV downloads. So we give basically a detailed CSV download of all account activity in River accounts. We give a monthly account statement PDF that looks very similar to what you'd see at a bank or traditional equities brokerage. It breaks down kind of in a much more pretty format. Everything that's going on in the account, buys, sells, deposits, transfers, all that good stuff. And also at the same time, we provide all tax documents at the end of the year, which sounds so basic, but it's in this industry, it's pretty hard to come by to get a actual clean 1099 that has gain and loss data calculated for you, short-term and long-term denoted, all that listed out line by line for you. So we will kind of do all that legwork, do all that kind of hard work to make it as easy as possible when it comes to the accounting side of things. Now, as you mentioned, it gets a little more complex when you have Bitcoin that you've acquired elsewhere outside of River. We can only legally attest to the Bitcoin that you acquired on River because we know that cost basis and we can attest to that cost basis. Therefore, we can calculate the 1099 for you, generate that, make it so much easier for you. But if you bought Bitcoin elsewhere, that's where, as you mentioned, Jordan, it gets a little bit messier. You can essentially, when you deposit Bitcoin in River, it's an unknown tax lot. You can go in and manually input unknown tax lots, their cost basis. So if you had data from a different exchange and you knew what the cost basis is, you can break that deposit down to as many rows as you want, as many chunks and tranches as you want, assign the cost basis manually. And now our performance dashboard will calculate that for you and show you and display that performance data based on that inputted information. But say you have 1,000 lots you acquired over 7 years, right? Going through and doing that is obviously a bit painful and manual. And we're actually, that kind of problem there, we're working on some unique ways to hopefully solve that in the future, of being able to in bulk or in mass kind of be able to backfill some of that data for clients if they did have, say, a CSV from a different exchange or whatever it may be, and have that data at least available instead of having to manually go through and hopefully be able to kind of in mass update that, because then our system can calculate that, can show you that, display that in account statements and the CSV downloads, and make it as easy as possible to share that, not just obviously to the client, but also to the business, to the stakeholders, to the CPAs internally, to the firms, just to make it as easy as possible to actually account for that when it comes time for that.
Yeah, no, it's huge. I mean, especially right now, I'm sure you all are getting some inquiries on tax loss harvesting. I mean, better to have done it last week than this week, but you know, there's no time like the present. I mean, but we're working with clients right now that are like, I know that I've got some lots that are in gain positions long term. I know I've got some lots that are short term losses, and you know, can we go in and tax loss harvest, and even though it's only February, March, like go ahead and just lock in a smaller gain, lock in a larger loss, and take that to a financial advisor like Wyatt and say, hey, what other positions do we have in the portfolio that we could harvest some gains potentially and not have to pay taxes on those because we've got losses elsewhere. So it's a very interesting time for definitely for all of that. But to your point, it's like if you don't have that data locked in, then it's kind of like it's a mess for all the practitioners, be it Wyatt trying to do financial planning or for us trying to do tax planning. So
Yeah, I'm sure you've seen some messy reports and things of that nature. I'm sure, Jordan, when it comes to that.
not a river one, but yes, there's been some other ones. Or
thankfully.
Yeah, no, your all's reporting it should. I know this is like turning into we're just fanboys, but we are, you know, but yeah, especially some of the ones that didn't do proof of reserves and lost clients money and went out of business, or they went offshore, and now clients are like, I don't have a way to go into my BlockFi account and grab old CSV. We have to work with their bank statements to reconstruct cost basis schedule best way we can. So it can get very messy for sure. So
That's insane.
I mean, for newer Bitcoiners that are coming in, be it an individual or a business, there is a really good argument to be made to say, really do your due diligence on what exchange you would like to work with, and just pick that long-term partner and stick with them, because it will just make your life so much easier. And it'll make our lives easier on when it comes to tax filings and planning out doing your financial plan as well. So, and River's a great option.
It's really interesting. Ben, something I'm curious, kind of zooming up to like the macro view here. I was at Bitcoin Amsterdam, and Jack Wallace gave a talk there, and he was talking about there's 4 profitable business models in Bitcoin. You said crypto, but we don't like to use that word on the show. It was stable coins, exchanges, lending, and treasury companies. You guys are obviously an exchange. How do you, first, question on that, it's like, what do you think of that statement? And second, are there opportunities for River to grow into other verticals? Or are you thinking you just want to be like the best exchange, no demand, we're going to do this and we're going to do it really well?
Yeah, to kind of hit on that point, you somewhat hit the nail on the head on the ladder there in terms of being the best exchange, doing one thing and doing it very well. That's kind of been our focus since day one, and Alex has said this plenty of times as well, plenty of places, right? It's big believer in focus, right? It's kind of do one thing, do it very well. It's like the Raising Cane's, right? They make chicken fingers, they do it very well, they stick to chicken fingers. Like, don't get distracted and don't get kind of get carried away with some of these other products. And we've seen plenty of businesses that Jordan mentioned a name of a few during bull runs, right? That they get into these kind of hyper scaling, hiring a lot of employees, launching credit card products, launching lending products, getting into areas that they're not focused on because they're trying to take advantage of the market movement. Whereas with River, we're Bitcoin only. We're very focused on being Bitcoin only. We're very focused on being the best Bitcoin only exchange in the world. We don't want to get distracted with other products. We don't have any plans to have lending or anything of that nature in current form. When you kind of remove and extract complexity, it really increases a lot of things, not just operationally, but also from a product perspective, right? We try to make our product, our user interface, our user experience as intuitive as possible. We touched on reporting. Reporting's a lot easier to build when you have one asset and one asset class, as opposed to getting distracted with even if you build lending on top of that asset, it also introduces some complexities, things of that nature as well. But I think also zooming out from just pure those kind of 4 models that you mentioned, just Bitcoin as a whole, right, and different companies in the industry. Alex has a good way of describing this too. It's like, you have to build in the bear markets, right? Because it's somewhat like operating a hotel in a beach town, but you don't know when summer is. So you're basically running a hotel where you have tourists coming, but you don't know when summer is, you don't know when winter is, you don't know when the seasons are going to come. So it's all about kind of being hyper-focused on building the best products. We really focus on our perspective on kind of a few different pillars. You mentioned proof of reserves. That's key and core to our culture. We also have our financials that are public that some people don't know about. So we're a private company, but we publish our financials to be public to the world so that people can feel comfortable and safe with River as an organization, as a company, as a financial services business, and kind of trust us in that sense, because we really want to build around core pillars of transparency, trust, security, and then also service. Something we really do is obsess about the client as a whole, right? We don't have users, we don't have customers, we have clients. They're real people that have family, that have friends, that have real lives, and we're helping them build their Bitcoin wealth. It's not something we take lightly and that responsibility lightly. And I think hopefully that shows through proof of reserves, public financials, force field, as you mentioned Wyatt earlier, in terms of helping people protect their Bitcoin. So I guess long-winded way of saying focused on building the best Bitcoin and Bitcoin-only exchange in the world, and also being and building the most trusted financial institution in the world. I think that evolves in that sense. Whereas Bitcoin grows as an asset class, right? We want to be that most trusted financial institution in the world, as opposed to just Bitcoin exchange in the world.
Yeah, I think that makes a ton of sense, and I don't fault you guys at all. As working in the professional services industry, I'm bummed to hear that because I love working with you guys, and I was like, oh man, it'd be sweet if my clients who get Bitcoin collateralized loans at River, because we know they do things like the right way.
Yeah. In the future,
But
who
I don't
knows? I
fault
mean,
you at all.
hey, in the future, who knows what may come in terms of products? So wouldn't write off we're fully write it off, I guess. But yeah, definitely no explicit plans in the current form. Thinking through unique ways and unique products, and obviously Bitcoin interest on cash is one of those, right? Every business earns interest on cash that clients hold in their accounts for them. We were one of them, and we're like, hey, why can't we just pass this to our clients? So now we pass Bitcoin interest on cash. So any cash clients hold with us earn 3.3% interest, paid in Bitcoin on those US dollars, FDIC insured, all that good stuff. So definitely we'll have more unique products like that in the future. Don't explicitly have insight into what those may be right now, but yeah, definitely more to come on that.
But it's honestly like a callback in my head to just a simpler, more traditional time where you weren't bailed out if you made a bad decision or a string of bad decisions over time, right? You had to set up a profitable business. You had to manage what you had coming through the door. If you need to make a big purchase, you had to save for that. And so in some ways I see it as like, yes, there's all these products out there, but really they're just coming in from the traditional world, and that's what everyone's used to. But I think honestly, all those products are what has gotten us into this extremely broad macro scenario where we're just in a mess, right? At all levels. If you look at consumer debt, or you look at business debt, or you look at sovereign debt. So I don't know. I'm kind of torn on the subject, and I would say, yeah, I mean, the other reason is like I want to jump the line, and I want you guys to put out your API ASAP this year. That's my big ask, which I know you all are. Well, I don't know if I'm supposed to say anything publicly about it. We'll see what happens this year.
See what's coming on the API front. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, talk to us about I know you said before we went on air, your February was a big month for you all. Kind of talk through how that looked, because I think it's encouraging for folks who are either listening in and they're like, what is this Bitcoin thing? Clients are asking about it, or they're hardcore Bitcoiner, they've been in the space for a while. Give us a behind the scenes look at what happened at River in February in terms of volume.
Yeah, it's very interesting because if you were to kind of look externally, the price has stayed down this week. It hasn't risen, but like if you look in February, price was down, sentiment was low, fear was probably pretty high across the entire market. But February was our highest volume month ever at River. So we definitely, even though the price is down, the adoption is not slowing by any means across both businesses and individuals. So we've had our highest volume month ever in February. We've crossed over 25,000 Bitcoin under custody. That's currently in our cold storage, full reserve that has proof of reserves we mentioned. 7.7 Bitcoin were earned in interest on cash balances. So just for clients holding effectively their savings at River, again, if FDIC insured, they earned 7.7 Bitcoin in total across those balances at River as well. So we're definitely seeing the accumulation continue, the adoption continue. Obviously, price has remained somewhat stagnant with a little bit of increase here, but yeah, by no means is the adoption slowing, and we definitely see that increasing pretty steadily and heavily internally to River as well.
Yeah, I think that's super like bullish sentiment. Everybody's down in the dumps about the price of Bitcoin. It's like, sure, it's not fun necessarily, but the fear and greed index, which I'm not totally sure how it's calculated, has been like extreme fear, and it feels like everybody's down and negative, where the fundamentals themselves have never been better. And to me, that's just another data point.
100%. Could not agree more.
This episode is brought to you by Satoshi Pacioli, a full-service accounting and tax firm built for the Bitcoin economy. If you run a Bitcoin business, mine Bitcoin, or invest in it, you need advisors who actually understand how this industry works. Satoshi Pacioli handles bookkeeping, financial reporting, tax compliance, and strategic planning for Bitcoin-focused companies and individuals. They speak the language of Bitcoiners and help you stay compliant while building for the long term. To learn more or book a consultation, visit satoshipacioli.com.
Ben, one of my favorite tweets of all time, I hope I never forget it, was Mr. Alex Leishman absolutely dunking on Brian Armstrong after the Coinbase leak. What was that, like 6 months ago or something like that?
Who's Brian
and,
Armstrong?
I was going to say the bald guy, but I don't want to give bald guys a bad name.
Just search him, I guess. If you're in the audience, just search his name, I guess.
Yeah. He shall not be named. He's like Voldemort around here, around BFFS. But so that was obviously, it wasn't even really a hack. I guess it was more of a data breach is like a better, term for it. Offshore employee like getting bribed is like my understanding how the situation played out. So they got access to like this customer data, client funds were never at risk, but obviously like way more personal information out on the black market than, anybody should feel comfortable with. And, Alex was talking about how Rivers made the conscious decision to invest in U.S. talent, invest in quality services, something Jordan and I have been kind of talking about off the camera is just, AI as, small business owners, like it's getting so powerful. We're creating apps to, automate a lot of our back-end compliances. And we almost feel fortunate that we're in the services business because it's like rise of the services, again, and like actually having that intimate client experience. And I'd just like you to kind of walk through maybe like some of your roles specifically, your guys' kind of like white glove services and how you interact with clients. And then specifically, if you're working in tandem with the CPA, with a financial advisor, I always try to be very cognizant when I'm working with outside, partners. Like I want to own and control the communication with my clients. And so how are you guys working with professionals? What kind of, changes or advancements or, efforts have you put into like the services side of the business?
Yeah, for sure. On the former piece on the security side, first and foremost, from River's perspective, everyone at River is a security employee, right? No, not just our security engineers that we have that are working full time on security, but even our client services team, our relationship management team, everybody basically. Before we do anything, the first thought is from a security perspective. So definitely that Alex has instilled that culture across everyone at River because, like we saw in the Coinbase breach, right? Humans are sometimes the biggest fault and biggest failure. So thinking through security being top of mind no matter what is always a kind of top of mind priority for us. In terms of working with kind of advisors, service-based individuals, we've seen an increase in the amount of advisors that we work with, CPAs we work with, family offices, just because as it kind of Bitcoin continues its kind of growth as an asset class, and we obviously see the Wall Street adoption. More and more advisors have hopped on the train and the wave of Bitcoin. So we've been working directly with them more often. Now, from a client perspective, right, we're the Bitcoin portion of their entire wealth, right? So a lot of the clients have obviously their advisors help them with other portions of their wealth and tax savings and things of that nature. So we can work tandem and work hand in hand with those advisors to help them with everything and anything from the Bitcoin perspective, whether it's tax loss harvesting, whether it's optimizing different kind of tax loss strategies, HIFO, LIFO, FIFO, all that good stuff, whether it's just obviously buying, selling, Bitcoin just on cash, whatever it may be, estate planning. We have account beneficiaries, so we can help clients with, and also their advisors or lawyers with TOD plans and transfer on death plans. Onboarding family trusts has been a big growth area with advisors, specifically in their clients, is onboarding their estate plans, their trusts, revocable, irrevocable, all that good stuff to get on board and to hold Bitcoin on behalf of. So I would say, honestly, the trust side of things has been a huge growth area when we're specifically talking about just advisors and RIAs. And there's been a lot of clients who've been taking advantage of that to kind of add Bitcoin to their estate plan and to that existing estate plan. We can easily onboard that existing trust, add Bitcoin to that trust for them on River, and make it easy to report that and provide that to any lawyer, advisor, whoever may have or need info on that as well.
Yeah, I just want to call out too how good the service is. Like the support, you send an email to a support at whatever domain, and I don't know, 90+% of the time you're just like, I don't know. I got no idea where that's going or if I'm ever going to hear back on that email. I onboarded. There's a local guy here in Louisville. He run. It's actually the largest American whiskey bar in the world, but it's a really popular restaurant and bar here. And actually he came out and did our bourbon tasting. I don't know, Ben. I don't know if you picked the wine or the bourbon, but it was Tommy. Um, so I onboarded Tommy to River. I orange pilled him like right after the election. I didn't even know he owned the whole restaurant. It was so funny, and we've become friends since. But anyways, he's a little bit older guy, like 50s, late 50s probably. And something happened, and all older people, they just sometimes they make mistakes, and so I onboard him. Then I think he like did like some kind of chargeback or something. Like he didn't have originally understand he didn't recognize in his bank or something, and he like disputed it, and then he sees it come out of River, and he's texting me. He's like, dude, what the heck, did my account get hacked, or like what is this? Because then he forgot or whatever, I don't know. And I'm like, I don't know. I was like, dude, I mean, I'll push you to email support at River. And you guys emailed back like immediately, someone got on the phone with him and sorted it all out. And he was an early customer. It wasn't like he was a whale or anything like that. So again, just hats off. It was a good story, and a good like example in my head of like, wow, you could never expect that level of service with really any other exchange that's out there. Every other exchange out there really is like a black box.
Yeah.
In terms of support.
Yeah, no, we truly pride ourselves on the service side of things. So I'm glad you got to see that in action because you can call our support team Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern. Someone's always going to answer the phone. You have a real human to talk to based here in the U.S. Who knows everything in and outs about River. They're not kind of offshore. Or they're not employees of River. They're full time. Email within a few minutes typically, in terms of getting email support back within those hours as well. So definitely truly pride ourselves on the white glove service. Obviously, we're relationship managers like myself as well, who work a lot with advisors and other partners and businesses and private clients and high net worth individuals to be a personal point of contact. They can text, call us 7 days a week. So yeah, being that kind of high touch service is something we definitely pride ourselves on. And as you mentioned, it's pretty hard to come by in this industry as a whole. A lot of companies kind of set up an app and they say, hey, whoever comes and uses the app, that's fine. But we really pride ourselves, as I mentioned before, right? We have clients, we don't have users. Other apps have users. We truly treat it as such. They're real humans that are, again, building Bitcoin wealth on River, and we want to make sure we provide them with the highest level of service possible. And hopefully that shows itself through the emails, the calls, all that good stuff as well.
Yeah. All right. I know we're getting close on time. I do want to make sure the last thing on my list that we probably spend 5 or 10 minutes on maybe is like the banking direct deposit bill pay piece. I know that I just know it sounds like, onboarding a lot of businesses. Some businesses, it's a buy and hold. Some businesses are integrating it into their payments or how they're paying employees or contractors. I'm just curious if you could kind of go down that rabbit hole a little bit about what that looks like at River over the course of the next 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, for sure. Over the next 2-3 years from that time frame, definitely want to build more out in that regard when it comes to kind of what ushering in what we call the dual currency era, which there was a prior report actually that we put out on that as well. In terms of spending in dollars but saving in Bitcoin, right? By no means from a transactional basis do we think Bitcoin is going to replace the dollar tomorrow. There's obviously a lot of systems and legacy thoughts and things of that nature that need to change in order for that to happen in the future. So right now we want to help usher that dual currency era of saving in Bitcoin, spending in dollars in. So that's why we launched things like direct deposit, as you mentioned. You can now receive payroll directly to your River account. So you can go to your payroll provider and push whatever amount of dollars to your River account. You can auto convert that into Bitcoin at time of deposit for free. So you effectively can get paid in Bitcoin. You can set that percentage. You can define what percent of your payroll you get in Bitcoin effectively when it gets deposited to your River accounts. Obviously, that's in addition to our Bitcoin Interest on Cash, as we've mentioned before. So you do have any idle cash in your River Cash balance. It accrues daily, that interest. So you only need to keep it in the account for one day or longer, and it'll pay you out that interest at the end of the month for that as well. So it kind of works in tandem with our direct deposit support, and then coming here soon as well, where I have bill pay. So kind of rounding out some of the more fiat kind of rails, and kind of increasing some of the usability there. You'll be able to pay bills directly from your River account. So pay your rent, pay your gym membership, whatever it is, you can pay directly from your credit card bill, directly from a River account. So you can hold that cash balance, earn that interest in the meantime, then be able to pay bills directly from there as well. So really just increasing some of those features on the US dollar side of things to make it easier to kind of the interoperability between Bitcoin and dollars, as you need in order to kind of live on a Bitcoin standard, and also usher some of that dual currency area in as well.
That's awesome. I think that's, really important features. Clients ask me all the time, it's like, hey, I want to live more on like a Bitcoin standard. Like, how do I do this? And, it's things like you just described that make that much easier. My last question, Ben, and this has been, fantastic. I just kind of want to get your thoughts or opinion. When you're talking about, working with advisors and stuff, do you just kind of like pitch it to them as like, I'm like your Bitcoin arm, I'm like your Bitcoin guy? Like, what's that, some of that like communication like?
Yeah, so in terms of, I guess from an advisor perspective, the landscape is pretty wide in terms. I'm sure as you know, right? There's advisors who are very Bitcoin friendly, and there's advisors who treat Bitcoin like the Black Plague, and it's still kind of in that very wide spectrum. So it really depends on where the advisor and their clients are, and kind of meeting them where they're at, right? There are some advisors and their clients who use this only for Bitcoin on cash. They will deposit basically a rainy day fund or whatever it may be, get the FDIC insurance, and just begin accruing some Bitcoin balance on that cash. So they don't have they don't have to buy Bitcoin directly, but they deposit dollars, earn Bitcoin. They're off of zero now, and getting off of zero, as we all know, is the biggest kind of educational step you can take, because it forces you to learn about the asset class, about Bitcoin as a whole, and take that kind of deep dive down the rabbit hole. But there's some advisors as well where they're fully orange pilled, they're kind of fully Bitcoiners, and their clients are majority percent in Bitcoin. So we work with all advisors, and we work with them in different capacities. In most capacities, as you mentioned, right, we are their Bitcoin bank, for lack of better terms. So when it comes to anything Bitcoin related, not only are we helping their clients buy and sell, but we're also serve as an educational resource. So we've done lunch and learns, we've done different things like that for firms that are looking to kind of upskill advisors, their employees, their CPAs, their accountants on Bitcoin as a whole, aside from just explicitly serving their clients. So we try to push some of that educational first type content out there as well, when it comes to working with advisors, because there is a big educational gap where we are in that spectrum. For the advisors who skew towards non-Bitcoiners, it's typically just because they haven't taken the time, the hours that we all have to learn about the asset class and learn about Bitcoin as a whole. So we definitely kind of lean into that education piece as well, aside from just explicitly serving advisors and their clients from a buy-sell perspective as well.
I love it. Man, it's been great. As Wyatt said, Ben, thank you so much for coming on. Been looking forward to having this conversation for a long time, and glad we finally got it on the calendar and executed. So, any advisor or small business owner that's listening to this, how do they contact you or River? How do they get involved so that they can start partnering with you all to serve their clients better?
Yeah, in terms of learning more, super easy domain, just river.com. If they ever want to reach out, I'm on Twitter as well, at Ben Epling, or my email is ben.epling, EPLING, at river.com. So happy to chat with anyone who's interested or has questions or anything of that nature. Always available.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much. Wyatt, anything else from your side?
No, dude, it was great catching up. Thanks for coming on. This was great, Rip.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me.
Beautiful. All right, thanks so much, guys. We'll talk to y'all soon. All right, bye.
We appreciate you joining us. If you want to help build the future of Bitcoin and financial services, hit subscribe, leave a review, sign up for a newsletter, and share this with someone in your network who's integrating Bitcoin into their practice. The more professionals we reach, the stronger this ecosystem becomes, and our clients are better served. Stay sharp, stay sovereign, keep learning.